This presentation is to show you how to maintain your Felcotronic secateurs. Here we have the Felco 800, the 810, the battery pack, and some bits and pieces which are required to carry out this work. We'll need some grease, Felco 990, some lubricant spray, Felco 980, a rag, the spanner supplied with a toolkit, or it can be replaced with a Torx 10 screwdriver, a small screwdriver, a stock of circlips, an 8mm spanner and a 12mm one. This is the Felco 903, which is a diamond-coated sharpening tool, or you can use the stone provided in the kit, a scouring pad, a small paintbrush, and of course the user guide for you to refer to later on if you forgot any of this. Daily maintenance. This presentation is to show you how to care for your cutting head. We'll show you how to sharpen it, clean it, and adjust it. So grab your handpiece, hold your finger on the trigger, turn the switch on, open the blade, and switch off at the battery, and very importantly, you must remove the cable from the back of the tool. Never work on the tool doing any maintenance on the tool whilst it's connected to the battery pack. Now we're going to clean the cutting head. What I use is soapy water and the scouring pad. This will help to remove sticky, gooey sap from the blades. Just hold the cutting edge facing down so that the water doesn't penetrate too much. Once you're satisfied that the cutting head is clean, just dry it properly with the rag. And now we can do the sharpening operation. It's best to start with the blade in an open position and facing you. Here we'll be using the Felco 903. It's the same as if you were using the stone. Bear in mind that when you're sharpening a blade, you must try and keep the curve. You also have to try and keep the angles. The angle here is about 23 degrees. So this is 90 degrees, half of it is 45 degrees, and half again is about 23 degrees. So rub the sharpening tool along the edge. You can either go this way, or you can go this way, whichever you find more practical. Once you've restored the edge, turn the tool around because it will have raised a small burr on the inside edge, which needs to be removed. Start by holding the sharpening tool flat, lift it a bit, about 5 degrees, and rub it along the cutting edge to remove the burr and restore the 5-degree chamfer. And now with the Felco 903 you can perform another operation. It's called a burnishing operation. What it does is compacts the metal along the cutting edge. Holding the tool like this and the sharpening stick on its edge, just put good pressure on it and rub it along the cutting edge. Several times, putting about 10 kilos pressure on it. This will ensure that the cutting edge will stay sharper longer. Check again if it's raised a burr at the back. If so, just rub the sharpening tool a couple of times along the length of the blade. Now to adjust the blade, what we're going to do is the wobble test. We're going to find out if the blade can be moved in this direction, which is fine, but we don't want to feel any movement that way. So I can feel a little bit of movement in the open-shut direction, and yes, I can feel a little bit of movement that way as well. So with the 8mm spanner or the screwdriver, I prefer a spanner, undo the locking tab, bolt and tighten the center nut, just finger tight, light finger tight. Holding it all in place, secure the nut again in place with the locking tab by tightening its bolt, and check again. After you've performed an adjustment, always check again to see if it's tight. So I want a little bit of movement this way, but you don't want to feel any that way. And this is what we're having here. Next, with the Felco 980, give it a light spray. This will lubricate the moving parts and prevent rust. Please do not use this spray in the openings of the cutting head. Use it only on the cutting head, but not inside it. And this is your daily maintenance. Weekly maintenance. It's recommended that once a week the tool is cleaned under the front cover. To do so, again, grab the handpiece, hold your finger on the trigger, switch on at the battery to open the blade, turn the power off, and again, very important, remove the cord from the back of the handpiece. Now, to remove the front cover, it's simply done by undoing the 2 screws holding it to the main body. Note that the front cover can only be removed with the blades in an open position. You can use either the little Torx 10 tool provided in the kit, or use the Torx 10 screwdriver provided in the later kits. Undo the 2 screws and remove them completely from the body. The cover can now be removed. Be careful not to lose the 2 screws. Put them together with the lid. And this is what it looks like inside. The blade is connected to the drive mechanism via the axle and 2 levers, and this is the trigger. To clean inside here, it's a good idea to use the small paintbrush and remove as much dirt, twigs and bits and pieces as you can. Do not use compressed air in here, and do not use sprays in this area, especially not on the nut or the screw. It's also recommended not to remove the grease which is on the screw, but just to remove as much dirt as possible. So once this is done, you may as well carry out the same work as the daily maintenance and sharpening, cleaning of the head, and that's all there is to it. Just put the front cover back on, insert the 2 screws, tighten them up, and make them nice and tight. Do not open the back of the body. Do not undo the 4 screws in this area, as it will void your warranty and probably will cause the tool to be damaged in the process. And this is the weekly maintenance, which needs to be done on top of the daily maintenance. Cutting head maintenance and blade replacement. Lubricating the cutting head and/or replacing the blades. Hold the handpiece, turn the power on, open the blade, turn off, remove the cord from the back of the tool. We can now open the front cover. The cutting blade is connected to the drive mechanism via an axle, which is held in place by a circlip. We're now going to remove that circlip. Just hook the screwdriver in one of the small slots in the circlip and remove it. It's recommended to never reuse a circlip. It's a once-only item. Push the little axle out. Please note the orientation of the axle. Its head is always on the same side as the anvil blade. We've now disconnected the blade from the drive mechanism, so it's free to move. To remove the blade to service it, slacken the bolt holding the locking tab in place, and if it's a bit tight, use the 12mm spanner to undo the center nut. It should only be finger tight. Unscrew it completely and remove it. Remove the center bolt. Slide away the spring washer. And the cutting blade comes off. If the anvil blade needs to be replaced, also undo the back bolt and the front bolt. Please note that these two bolts are of different lengths. The back one is shorter, the front one is longer because it's going through the locking tab and a washer. The anvil blade comes off, and as in weekly or daily maintenance, simply clean both blades using soapy water and maybe the scouring pad. While the blade is out of the tool, you can also sharpen it, and with the tool dismantled like this, it's a good time to do a bit of cleaning as well. So use a small paintbrush to remove the dirt which has accumulated during the week. To refit the anvil blade, it's the inverse operation from taking it off. Short bolt at the back, the front bolt first put on the small spacer and then the locking tab. Just put them on loosely. And now, before we put the cutting blade back on, we fill this depression here in the anvil blade with grease. Be generous with the grease you use. The preferred grease is the Felco 990, which has been specifically designed for this sort of application. Also, generously lubricate the center bolt. Refit the center bolt to the cutting blade, and on it goes on the anvil blade. At this stage, it's good to lubricate this surface with a bit of spray, and Felco 980 is the preferred spray. It's designed specifically for this sort of use. Put the spring washer on with its curved face up, then the center nut. With the center nut at this stage, it's good practice to tighten it up with the 12mm spanner and then loosen it. This is to settle the parts together and squeeze out the excess grease, which will then make sure that the blade adjustment will be done correctly. So, light finger tight, line up the teeth of the locking tab with the teeth of the center nut, and tighten this assembly with an 8mm spanner. Now the wobble test. We're going to make sure that the blade runs smoothly this way, but there's no play that way. Now we're going to reconnect the cutting blade to the drive mechanism here and connect it to the two levers. It's also recommended to put lubrication in that area before you assemble it. Same on the axle. Lubricate the axle before putting it in. Line up all the holes. And it helps sometimes to put the finger on the trigger to take the pressure off the two levers. Line up all the holes and fit the axle back in. As mentioned previously when taking it apart, make sure the head of the axle is on the same side as the anvil blade. Don't fit the axle that way. This is wrong. Taking a new circlip, holding the axle with your finger, fit the circlip in the groove. You can feel it sliding in, and with the screwdriver, apply pressure to it until it snaps in again. Again, have a visual check inside before putting the front cover back on. So, circlip is on, everything is clean. Double check the tightness of the two bolts. The front cover should be cleaned as well. And if the trigger guard is loose on the front cover, just tighten up this screw again, refit the front cover, and tighten its two screws. Please be aware when you carry out these operations that you're dealing with a tool with a sharp blade. So be careful not to harm yourself by striking the blade with your fingers. Now reconnect the battery pack via the cord to the handpiece. And we test. Turn the power on, and the tool's ready for another week's pruning. Felco 810 cutting head maintenance. The Felco 810 has a different cutting head to the 800, and when changing the blade, there's a slightly different procedure. With the tool connected to the battery pack, hold your finger on the trigger, turn the power on, and now only open the blade halfway. Halfway means that the trigger is in the middle of the slot in the cover. Always disconnect the tool from the battery pack. We can now open the front cover. As in the Felco 800, the cutting blade is secured to the drive mechanism via the little axle which holds it to the two levers. The axle is also secured in there by a circlip. With a screwdriver, hook in one of the slots in the circlip and push it out. The circlip, once removed, should not be reused. Just discard it, push the little axle out, and recover it from the other side. Please note that the head of the axle is on the same side as the anvil blade. Now the blade is disconnected from the drive mechanism. To remove the blade from the tool, simply slacken the bolt, securing the locking tab in place, and unscrew the lock nut, which should be only finger tight. Push the centre bolt out and slide the blade out. If you need to remove the anvil blade, simply undo both bolts, remembering that the one at the back is shorter than the front one, as the front one has to go through the locking tab. When the tool's open like this, it's always a good idea to clean the inside as much as possible. Do not use sprays on it, and don't use compressed air either. To refit the blade to the anvil blade, add a liberal coating of Felco 990 grease on the inside face of the anvil blade. And filling all the grooves, same with the blade, fill all the grooves. Apply a good coating of grease to the centre bolt. And now it's easier to refit the blade by first putting it on top of the anvil blade, lining the holes up, and putting the centre bolt in there. Hold it with the finger, turn the assembly around, and now it's a good time to give it a squirt of Felco 980 spray. This will help prevent corrosion behind the nut, and put the centre nut back on. It's good practice to tighten the centre nut and then loosen it. This will centre the assembly together and squeeze out the excess grease. Only gentle finger tight and secure the centre bolt and its nut with the locking tab, and tighten well. And now to reconnect the drive mechanism to the blade. It's easier if you hold the trigger depressed. It makes the two levers come out by themselves. Also here, put a liberal amount of grease between the levers and on the blade where it connects with the drive levers. Fit the blade between the levers while keeping the trigger depressed. And put grease on the axle. Lining up all the holes, reconnect the blade to the drive mechanism. This can be a bit fiddly when both the blade and the axle are new as well. Fit the new circlip, snap it in place. Before putting the front cover back on, check that everything is okay under the front cover. Check and clean also the inside of the front cover. Make sure the trigger guard's not loose, tighten the screw if it's loose, and screw it back on, making sure the two screws are tight. Please do not dismantle the back of the tool, as this will void its warranty and parts may also get damaged in the process. Now the tool is ready to be reconnected to the battery pack. Power it on, and it's ready for another week's pruning. How to safely fit cord from pruner to battery pack. It's recommended that if you need to remove the cord from the battery pack and not from the tool, or both for any reasons, take care when fitting the cord back to the battery pack. You do not want to bend the pins in there or push them in. The way to do this properly is to line up the cord in the socket and gently twirl it like this. Push gently and do up the lock nut. This will ensure that the pins in the socket will not get damaged.
Powerful, light, ergonomic. Felcotronic from Felco of Switzerland makes pruning safer, easier and faster. Discover productive, pain-free pruning with Felcotronic. The Felco 800 has a choice of cutting heads for general vineyard pruning, while the new Felco 810 high capacity, ideal for orchards, olive groves and vineyard renewal, handles larger branches with ease.
Felcotronic, I love it!
Ask your Felcotronic dealer for a demonstration today.